My girlfriend said, "I forged your signature to co-sign a car for my brother. You can afford it." I replied, "I see." Then I reported the identity theft to the bank and the police. When the repo man towed the car from her brother's wedding, the repo truck pulled up to the church parking lot at exactly 2:15 in the afternoon. I was sitting 3 cars back watching the whole thing unfold. Lauren's brother Tony was inside getting married and had no idea his brand new Dodge Charger was about to disappear. This started 6 weeks ago when I came home from work and found Lauren sitting at our kitchen table with her laptop open and a stack of papers next to her. She had this guilty look on her face but was trying to hide it. I asked what she was working on. She closed the laptop fast and said just some bills. We'd been together for 2 years. She moved into my house about 14 months ago. Things were decent. She had her administrative job and I had mine. We split utilities and groceries even though I owned the place. Seemed fair enough. That night she kept checking her phone and smiling. The secretive kind of smiling. I didn't push it because I'm not the type to interrogate someone over their phone. Figured it would come out if it needed to. 4 days later, I got a call from my bank. The woman on the phone asked if I'd recently applied for an auto loan. I said no. She said they had an application with my information and wanted to verify before final approval. I told her I hadn't applied for anything and to reject it immediately. She said she'd note that in the system and suggested I check my credit report. I hung up and immediately pulled my credit report. There was a hard inquiry from the day before for an auto loan. The application hadn't gone through yet because the bank had flagged it for verification. My name, my social security number, everything. Someone had tried to use my information. Lauren walked in from work about 20 minutes later, saw me staring at my laptop, asked what was wrong. I told her someone tried to take out a car loan in my name. Her face went white. She sat down and said she needed to explain something. She told me her brother Tony needed a car. His credit was destroyed from repossessions and missed payments years back. He'd found a Charger he wanted, but couldn't get approved. She'd offered to help by putting in an application as a co-signer using my name. Said she figured I'd understand once I knew the full story. I asked her if she was serious. She said Tony really needed reliable transportation and I had good credit, that it wouldn't actually cost me anything because Tony would make all the payments. I asked her how she got my social security number. She said it was on tax documents in my filing cabinet. I told her that was fraud. She got defensive, said fraud was a strong word, that she was trying to help family, and I should want to help too after 2 years together. I said helping would have been asking me first. She said she knew I'd say no, so she handled it herself. I stood up and told her she needed to call Tony and tell him the loan wasn't happening. She said she couldn't do that. The dealership was expecting him to pick up the car in 2 days. I said that wasn't my problem. She started crying. Said her whole family was counting on this, that Tony had already sold his old car to put money down. I told her I was calling the bank back to report identity theft. She panicked, grabbed my arm and said I couldn't do that, that it would ruin Tony and make her family hate me. I pulled my arm away and picked up my phone. Called the bank while she sat there crying. The bank rep I got this time was more serious. Took down all the details, asked if I wanted to file a formal fraud report. I said yes. She said they'd stop the application immediately and start an investigation. Lauren was sobbing by this point. I hung up and told her she needed to leave for the night. She said this was her home too. I reminded her my name was the only one on the deed and the locks. She called me every terrible thing she could think of. Said I was ruining her brother's life, that her family would never forgive this. I told her she should have thought about that before stealing my identity. She grabbed her purse and keys and left. Slammed the door hard enough that a picture frame fell off the wall. The next morning, I went to the police station, filed a report for identity theft and attempted fraud. The officer said these cases could be complicated in domestic situations, but he'd process the report. I gave him copies of everything the bank had sent me. He said a detective would follow up. Lauren texted me maybe 50 times that day. Apologies mixed with anger, mixed with more apologies. Then her mom started calling from Lauren's phone. I answered once. Her mom said I was destroying their family, that Tony had 3 kids to support and needed that car for his job. I said Tony should have handled his finances better and not committed fraud. She hung up on me. 3 days later, someone knocked on my door at 8 at night. I looked through the peephole and saw Lauren's dad, big guy who'd worked construction for 30 years. I opened the door but kept the chain on. He said we needed to talk man to man. I said we could talk through the chain. He told me I was making a huge mistake, that Tony was family and family takes care of each other, that I was being selfish and vindictive. I said I was being someone who didn't appreciate having their identity stolen. He said I was overreacting to a simple misunderstanding. I told him identity theft wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a crime. He stepped closer to the door, said I needed to think about what I was doing to his family. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Told him he had 30 seconds to leave my property. He stared at me for a few seconds, then walked away. Called me a coward as he left. The bank finished their investigation within 2 weeks, confirmed the signature was forged and the application was fraudulent. They closed the case on their end and sent me documentation. I forwarded everything to the police detective handling my report. That's when I found out about the wedding. Lauren's sister posted something on social media about Tony getting married next month, outdoor ceremony at some nice venue. I checked the date, did some math on the timeline, called the detective and asked if there had been any progress. He said they had enough to charge Lauren but were waiting on a few final pieces. I asked how long that would take. He said probably another few weeks. I told him there might be a time-sensitive element and explained about the car. He said he'd see what he could do. Here's where things get interesting. Turns out Tony had managed to get the car anyway, not through my information since the bank blocked that. He'd gotten his dad to co-sign instead. Different car, different dealership, but still a Charger. His dad apparently had decent enough credit to make it work. I found this out from Lauren, who showed up at my house one afternoon. I didn't let her in, but we talked through the screen door. She said Tony got his car and everything worked out fine without me, that I'd caused all this drama for nothing. I told her the drama was caused by her committing fraud. She said I needed to let it go. I asked if she'd told the police she tried to steal my identity. She said that was still being handled, but probably nothing would come of it. That her lawyer said it would be hard to prove intent. I didn't say anything to that. Just told her we were done and to stop coming by. She left, but I could tell she thought she'd won. That Tony had his car and I'd just been a speed bump they got around. The detective called me 2 days later, said they were moving forward with charges against Lauren. Asked if I was still willing to testify if needed. I said absolutely. He said he'd be in touch. Lauren got arrested on a Thursday morning. The detective called to let me know, said she'd been charged with identity theft and fraud. She'd be arraigned and released on her own recognizance most likely. I thanked him for the update. Lauren's family went nuclear. Her dad left me a voicemail calling me every name in the book. Her mom showed up at my work, crying. Security had to escort her out. Her sister sent me a long message about how I was destroying Lauren's future over a mistake. I didn't respond to any of it. The wedding was 2 weeks away at this point. Lauren made bail and was back at her parents' house. She tried calling me from different numbers. I blocked each one. She sent emails. I filtered them to spam. One of her cousins reached out on social media, said the family understood I was hurt, but pressing charges was too far, that Lauren had learned her lesson and just wanted to move on. I told the cousin that Lauren committed a felony and would face the appropriate consequences. The cousin blocked me after that. The week of the wedding, I got a call from a lawyer I didn't know. He said he represented Lauren and wanted to discuss a resolution. I said there was nothing to discuss. He said Lauren was willing to pay restitution and attend counseling if I dropped the charges. I said no. He said I was being unreasonable. I hung up. Wedding day arrived. I'd found out from social media posts that it was at 2 in the afternoon. Big outdoor ceremony at a vineyard about 40 minutes away. The weather was supposed to be perfect. I drove over around noon, parked where I could see the entrance but wasn't obvious. Cars started arriving around 1:30. The wedding party, guests in their nice clothes, Photographers setting up, it looked expensive. At exactly 2:15, a repo truck pulled into the parking lot. I'd called them the day before with a tip about where Tony's car would be. They'd confirmed they had an active repossession order on a vehicle registered to Tony and his father. Apparently, Tony had missed 3 payments already, and his dad had stopped making them too. The truck driver found the Charger in about 30 seconds. Black, shiny, parked in a prominent spot near the entrance. He hooked it up quick and professional. A few guests noticed and started pointing. Someone went running into the ceremony area. Tony came out in his tuxedo, started yelling at the driver. The driver showed him paperwork. Tony kept yelling. His father came out next. They were both arguing with the driver, who just kept working. The bride appeared on the steps looking confused and upset. The truck drove off with the Charger. Tony stood there in the parking lot looking stunned. His father was red-faced and angry. Guests were coming out to see what the commotion was about. The bride was crying. The photographer was still taking pictures like nothing had happened. Lauren spotted my car. I saw the exact moment she recognized it. She came storming across the parking lot. I rolled down my window halfway. She started screaming, called me every name she'd ever learned, said I'd ruined her brother's wedding on purpose, that I was a vindictive monster. I told her I hadn't done anything, that Tony ruined his own wedding by not paying his bills. She said I'd called the repo company. I asked her to prove it. She couldn't. She just kept screaming. Her father came over, looked ready to put his fist through my window. I held up my phone, showing I was recording. He stopped, told Lauren to get away from my car. They walked back toward the ceremony area. The whole family was gathered in a cluster looking at me. I started my engine and drove away. Got about 30 messages that evening. Threats mostly. A few from family members I'd never even met. One uncle said he knew where I lived. I forwarded that one to the police. Everyone else got blocked. The wedding apparently continued after a delay. Saw photos on social media later. Everyone smiling like nothing had happened. No pictures of the parking lot drama though. Lauren's court date was 3 weeks later. I didn't have to testify. She took a plea deal, pled guilty to attempted identity theft, got 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, and had to pay a fine. No jail time but a conviction on her record. Her lawyer called me after to say I should be happy, that I'd gotten my pound of flesh. I told him I'd gotten justice. He hung up on me. Tony's marriage lasted about 4 months from what I heard. The bride apparently couldn't get over the wedding day disaster. Filed for divorce claiming emotional distress. Tony blamed me for that too somehow. Lauren tried to reach out about 6 months after her sentencing. Sent me an email saying she'd completed an anger management course as part of her probation. That she understood now that what she did was wrong. That she'd been thinking about family first and hadn't considered the consequences. I didn't respond. Her stuff was still in my garage in boxes. I texted her one time saying she had a weekend to pick it up. She came with her mom. Neither of them said a word to me, just loaded everything into a truck and left. I watched from the window. Changed my locks after that, even though she'd never had a key to the new ones. Ran into her dad at a gas station about a year later. He was pumping gas 2 spots over. Saw me and just stared. Didn't say anything. I finished pumping and drove off. Never saw any of them again after that. The whole thing cost me maybe $2,000 in time and lawyer consultations. Could have been a lot worse. Could have been $50,000 in debt for a car I never wanted. My credit recovered fine. The bank actually sent me a letter apologizing for not catching the fraud sooner. They put extra security measures on my account. I started dating again about 8 months after everything settled. Told the woman about Lauren on our second date. She asked if I felt bad about what happened. I said no. That people need to face consequences for their actions. She agreed. We dated for a few months. Didn't work out, but at least she didn't try to steal my identity. Tony sent me a friend request on social media maybe a year and a half later. I declined it. Then he sent a message saying he wanted to apologize, that he'd made bad choices and let his sister talk him into something he knew was wrong. That he was trying to make better decisions now. I thought about responding, decided against it. Some apologies don't fix anything. Lauren's mom tried calling me around the same time. Left a voicemail saying Lauren was doing well, working a steady job, staying out of trouble. Said Lauren wanted closure. I deleted the message. We had all the closure we needed when she pled guilty. My lawyer said I'd handled everything right. That a lot of people cave to family pressure or feel guilty. I told her I didn't feel guilty at all. She said that was good, that enabling bad behavior doesn't help anyone. I still live in the same house, same job. Life kept moving. I think about that day at the wedding sometimes. The look on Tony's face when his car got hooked up, the chaos in the parking lot, the bride crying on the steps. Part of me feels bad for her. She married into that mess. But that wasn't my doing. That was all Tony and Lauren and their family's choices. Lauren chose to steal my identity. Tony chose to let her. They chose to lie and manipulate instead of asking for help honestly. Those were their choices. The consequences were just consequences. I sleep fine.